Hey everyone, welcome back. Kristen here, introducing today's episode. If you haven't listened to our last episode, we recommend starting there, and we will put a link to that one in the show notes below so you can catch up. This is part two today of a really important conversation. Today, we are inviting you into another very candid, off the cuff conversation between me and Allie, just two close friends and mental health professionals, sharing what's been coming up in our lives, in our work, and in the collective right now. We are exploring some big themes around the energetics of partnership, the dance between the masculine and feminine, and how our disconnection from these truths might be affecting not just our relationships, but society as a whole. As always, these conversations are not meant to be prescriptive. We're not here to tell you what to think or how to feel. We're just raising questions, sharing our own experiences, and hopefully sparking something in you, whether that's a reflection, a curiosity, or even a strong emotional reaction. And if something we say brings up a strong reaction like discomfort or anger, we invite you to stay curious. It usually means there's something alive in you that could use some exploring. And on that note, we'd love to hear what this conversation sparks in you, your reflections, your wisdom, your questions. Comment below or send us an email to thisisthecourse@gmail.com and help make this more of a conversation. And as always, don't forget to share this episode with someone you care about and hit subscribe so you never miss a conversation. Let's dive in. Okay, we're back.
Round two.
Round two. No idea what we're going to talk about.
Okay, well, where did we leave off? I think we left off on the question of like what can help? What is the masculine role? What is
Mhm.
what is something that men can do to show up in these situations? That was at least one of the questions that we ended with. There was probably a few.
Yeah, yeah, right, right. How do we make it? Well, let's see. How do we make it safe again to maybe invite men into the holding? Or the other question is, how do we raise
Right.
our children?
I think that was the question. How do we teach men? Because there was a conversation of like, yeah, we do not teach men in this society how to hold this greater level of support or understanding or awareness of what women are going through during these out of the ordinary times
Mhm.
when there's a break in day-to-day reality. So I think that is just such a rich discussion and question of like how do we raise ourselves to also be comfortable in understanding of these differences in expression.
Yeah. How are you feeling about our conversation? How did you leave the conversation feeling? Or
Yeah, well, I'm a person that tends to have a lot more questions. And so some questions that I left with were, is this really like a male and female thing? And I happened upon this video of this woman that was talking about like, stop calling me a masculine woman. Like I am just a woman in my full power,
Mm.
in my full like range of being and expression. And these are just because I am like full in who I am, that doesn't mean I'm masculine. And so my my mind goes a lot to, is this about masculine or feminine? Is this about wholeness? Like, is there a role of masculine and feminine? And biologically, we're different. And we have maintained different roles in society for a long time. And I think that the biology does speak to differences in who we are and what our roles are or our purposes. But we are also like full spectrum beings that feel different aspects of all of it. And so I'm like, is it the men's role to to specifically hold space for a specific women's role? And to some degree, I do say yes, especially when it comes to like the bleeding time for women, giving birth, postpartum. Like there are certain very sacred roles specific to women. And therefore, I think there are very sacred roles specific to men. And I think the question really lies for me of like, what are those roles? Where's like the nuance? Where's the flexibility? And yeah, are there like concrete things that we can say? That's where I left the conversation.
I love it. I kind of left maybe with similar questions. Yeah, thinking about because we were very focused on, well, processing what I am currently moving through, which is male and female partnership and how that's impacting what is happening. So that was really the focus of our conversation. And then I was thinking about afterwards, yeah, is it masculine, feminine? Is it man, woman? Like, how does this show up in same-sex partnership?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and then what you're speaking to right now makes so much sense in terms of our biological differences. And I think about the cyclical nature of women
Mm-hmm.
and how we are so built differently than men in how we function, in how we need, in our energy levels, depending on where we are in our cycle. So there are these really big differences. We do not operate the same.
No.
And that doesn't mean but we can inhabit both energies too. You know,
Mm-hmm.
not like, oh, I'm 100% feminine energy because I'm a woman. No, we have both masculine and feminine energies. And I think in a same-sex partnership as well, there's maybe more of the masculine energy and one of the partners has more of the feminine energy. And so I wasn't really thinking about it in terms of gender, but more in terms of this sacred energy and the dance
Mm.
between the masculine and the feminine.
Right. Right. And I think then it really becomes like a definition of like, well, what is feminine energy and what is masculine energy? And I can't help but really just name in this conversation the major differences in the biology of like a woman who gestates, gives birth, breastfeeds for years, and like those are not the same. You know, a woman who holds that role and bleeds every month, you know, like that is a big undertaking every month for a woman. And a man is different. Like, as you said, like he doesn't have a cyclical nature. He's more like streamlined in his hormones throughout his life. Well, you know, from puberty to later on in age than women. And so, yeah, although there is the masculine and feminine energies that completely relate, I believe, to those biologies, like there is a biological aspect to women and their needs as well.
Yeah, it's interesting thinking about a conversation we had a couple of weeks ago about how your priority, or just in our experience, our priorities have shifted since becoming moms
Mhm.
and becoming moms. And I think for me, being in our mid to late 30s, there's there's been a shift
Mhm.
in what worked in our 20s doesn't really work so well now, or the needs are different. And I'm thinking about how, and let me just say, all of this masculine and feminine talk is very new for me, like in the last year, I would say. I previously have been very much committed to this belief that men and women are the same and equality and blah, blah. And of course, I believe in equality, but it's like we've gone as a society to such an extreme level as to deny that there are any differences between us.
Mm.
And the differences are not good or bad or right or wrong, right? It's not like, oh, men are better and stronger and women are weaker. It's none of that. Yeah, it's totally different. So anyway, end that rant. But I think at this stage of life and moving through motherhood, I have developed more of a curiosity about our roles and the feminine and the masculine. It's like what's coming to me right now is that it is in motherhood that we um everything changes. Biologically, we want to be with our child at all times, aside from self-care and breaks and sleep and all of that. But right, it's like it's unnatural internally for a lot of women, not all, to separate from their infant and to feel like, okay, I have to go to a 9 to 5 job and kind of shut off mom mode.
Mhm.
And so through motherhood, there for myself, and I think for a lot of women, there is a shift in priorities. It's like, oh no, I was this like get out of the house working woman, building my career. Right now, I'm like so cracked open and so in tune with my feminine nature and wanting to nurse and nurture and right, all of these aspects of motherhood that then we maybe are faced with this cognitive dissonance.
Mm.
Um, or something just breaks, right? Because it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think of just that comment that you said about like the woman who maybe needs to leave for her 9 to 5. She wants to be home with her baby, and there's this like separation, maybe anxiety or mom guilt or all the things that can come up. And there's this woman, Elena Bridgers, I believe is her name, and she talks about like the anthropology of parenting and mothering. And she says like when we were living in more village tribe situations, it would be so many as like 14 caregivers for every child. And so I think that as mothers or parents, we feel also this sole responsibility of caretaking our children. Because even if they go to daycare, like that's not our village.
Hmm.
Those are not the people that we've been raised with and live our whole life and watching them and, having all these relationships over time with. And so there's this unnaturalness of leaving our children with people that are not a part of our tribe and a part of our village as well. And so there is this sense of responsibility for being the sole caretaker, wanting to be with our children. But I think more than wanting to be with our children, too, like we want to be within our community with our children. We
Yeah.
know what that, like, we've had tastes of what that feels like, many of us to be in a maybe we're at like a family gathering or something and we're with our children, we're around our children, but they have a number of people to go up and ask like, oh, could you get me a drink or a sandwich? And we're like, oh, that's so nice to witness our children, be around our children, see that they're taken care of, but maybe not always being the immediate need also. And so I think that there is a part of us that has within us this desire to work as well and be a mother. So it's like, okay, are we perhaps in like a village time where gathering. We have our children with us, we have our other community members with us, but we're gathering together. The children have multiple points of care and support, and us also have multiple points of care, and we're fulfilling multiple purposes at the same time.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Right. I want to be with my kids. I also want to be able to create and fulfill other purposes in life and know that my kids are cared for and that I'm in community and we're all supported and everyone's needs are being met. And when it's that time of the month, I want to be able to go into my my hut or like go inward and disconnect from my responsibilities and not have to go to my job and have that sacred time
Mhm.
and trust that somebody else, can maybe take over during that time.
And deeply trust
Right.
that our children are cared for. Yeah. And I know that there's this like resurgence of the trad wife movement, which kind of speaks to these different gender roles that we're talking about, where the wife is like the traditional like 50s wife who like the husband goes off and works, makes all the money, provides, wife is home, caring for the children, caring for the home, making all the meals. And so there's this kind of like, oh, we need to go back to these gender roles. Kind of, as you mentioned earlier, like I was on this, you were on this wavelength of like everything's the same. And now there's more conversations of like, well, how are we different? Well, we need to go back to these stereotypical gender roles of you go work and provide and I'm home with the children. And maybe that was traditional for a certain time and place, but certainly not for most of human history when it looked more like what I was talking about before, where everybody had their role, everybody was, a part of society and a part of family and community in a different way that was both work and home and rest and honoring and not to glorify that everything was better then, but we do have these needs that are not being acknowledged and met, and therefore no wonder so many people are struggling in this reality that we're in.
Mhm. Yeah. We were talking a couple weeks ago, we were talking when we were talking about this, I remember saying or feeling like just how incredible both everybody is, right? Everybody's wonderful, both genders, non-genders, like it's all everybody's amazing and has such a capacity for anything, right? Whatever your unique purpose is on an individual level. Yes, go do that, go be that. And for myself, as a woman who is a mother and an entrepreneur and um, a business owner, like I love it all. I enjoy so much of all that I do, and it's not just one thing. And there's a part of me that feels so in my element and so aligned when I am creating or coming up with ideas or even like content creation to share and educate. And then I come into luteal or my menstrual cycle and I'm like, nope,
Mm,
no, I just want to be a mom. I just want to be at home. I just want to,
mm,
be with my family. I don't want to have to worry about will the bills be paid? Oh no, I'm not bringing in money if I'm not doing
mhm,
all this output.
mhm,
And so there is this element of it's like I go through it every month of wanting this um I guess it's this more traditional um situation where the man does provide
mhm,
for the financial needs and the woman, in this case me, has the freedom and space to provide when I feel energized to do that, to create when that comes naturally, to be home and mother my children when I need to do that. Honoring the cyclical nature of
Mhm.
women, that like we do not um, operate at that same output level in that same way every day.
Mhm. Yeah, so true. And I think what's needed is actually to reimagine something new. And I was talking to a friend the other day, and this kind of conversation was in the fields, and she's sorting out some things in her relationship. And we were talking about men being in this provider role. And I just said, well, and this wasn't like a question that I didn't know the answer to necessarily, but I said, what do you provide, or what do women provide? And she leans back and she goes, life.
Mm,
Provide life. I have chills on my body right now.
yeah.
And I said, when did we begin to minimize the sacred role of life giving and life maintaining? And I acknowledged within myself how I've minimized that. Like in my body, there's no way I could minimize that. My body tells the story. My children tell the story. But somewhere in my understanding, did I not fully elevate and honor what a sacred role and gift that is?
Yeah, 100%. And I've been there too, minimizing that role, feeling
Yeah.
shameful about that being all that it is,
Mm,
not recognizing what it actually is.
mm. Yeah. And I feel still that there's a lot more for me to honor about that. And I believe it's Chinese medicine that says like it's not 6 weeks for a woman to recover after childbirth. It can be 7 years. I felt that. I felt that it was 7 years for me.
That's so interesting. I don't know if I've ever heard you say that before, because every year I would feel so deeply
Mm,
the experience of my first birth. It was my first birth, but it was also an incredibly traumatic birth. And so every year I would feel so much emotion. It was like this day of just being with myself, being with my feelings, being with my child, and honoring what that day was. And I want to say he's 9 now. And so I want to say it was right around the seventh year, his seventh year,
mm,
might have been the last time that I felt that level of really kind of like a grieving and processing.
mm,
The last 2 years have been significant. It's more of like a light, sweet, heart open day, but it doesn't hasn't held the same depth of grieving and emotion.
mm.
Fascinating.
Wow. And there's so much more besides the physical that you just spoke to, the emotional, like the heart, the nervous system, the processing. Like what is held within those 7 years is so much deeper than just simply how we give birth and recover physically.
Mhm.
And that is a part of that honoring. we're carved out, like our organs are misshapen, our body, and we literally sacrifice our body. We open our body as a vessel to create an entire new life, and every day we are doing that. Maybe not in the same physical realm, of course, when we're breastfeeding, but yeah, in the physical realm, we're every day feeding our children, every day feeding them nourishment in a million different ways and carving out our life and our space to be that vessel for them. And what's greater than that? And I think what we're speaking to here is the honoring of that great work.
Yeah, we'll have to. I love where this conversation went, and I had no idea, neither of us had any idea where it was going to go. And
Yeah.
maybe come back to that initial question that we'll leave that still kind of lingering, that question of how do we raise our children to recognize and honor the masculine and the feminine, and how do we support partners in showing up when um, the feminine is cracked open,
Mm,
needing the holding.
hmm because these are really more extreme examples that we talked about in the last episode, but really it's needed in that deep holding all the time,
Mhm.
in that deep understanding. And right when it's so far out of our capacity or awareness of what's normal and tolerated, where do we go from there? How do we prepare ourselves to listen and prepare our men, prepare our society to know how to be with those completely maybe dissolved through that experience of full surrender?
Okay.
More to come. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.